Hello and welcome back to Ticker Talks. Together with Polaron Language Services, we are looking to use language to connect communities. And whilst Polaron is the sponsor of today's program, all the views and opinions in the following segment are of course our own. I would also like to acknowledge that this segment is being held on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people, and I pay my respects to elders both past, present and future as well. And I am of course joined by Director of Polaron Language Services, Eva Hussein, as usual. How are you today?
I'm pretty good, thank you, Mike. Thank you for having me.
Not at all. Now the desks are a prelude to our guests we're having in a bit later on, but let's talk a little bit about what's been happening at Polaron this week.
Family Planning Victoria is the project we're showcasing this week. We work with them on a number of videos for the Chinese-speaking communities mostly. We find that video is a really good way of connecting with people and a very important topic for women and men planning your family, childbirth. It's a very successful campaign and we're very proud for having been part of it.
So you should be. The animation's fantastic as well. Very nicely communicated.
Yeah.
But let's talk about things that aren't nicely communicated. Each week you bring me in a miscommunication of the week. What have you seen there out in the wild at the moment?
Mike, this one is massive and something we should be worried about, but then again, maybe not, because I think the minute you get online, the big organizations know everything about you. But this particular one concerns Australians, where CLEARVIEW, a company that works in artificial intelligence and face recognition space, has collected images of Australians without them knowing and started using them for profiling and all kinds of dodgy activities. They've been stopped now, and many companies like Amazon are no longer using face recognition, but it's a area that's full of confusion, I guess, let's put it that way.
There's a bit of a grey area, I
suppose. It is, and you know, privacy is of importance to a lot of people. I don't know how private we can be once we're online, but this is one area that you know, organizations recognize that shouldn't perhaps be explored as yet.
As long as we can share photos of our brunch and such, that's what it's all about.
And cats.
Okay, over to our topic for today, and there's no denying that machine translations have come a long way and are continuing to improve. So what does this mean for the global language industry? Can humans work alongside machines, or are the machines taking over? We are lucky enough to be joined by Tristan Priolo, one of the Polaron project's coordinators, who has recently completed her translation degree. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio.
My pleasure.
And we've also got Marcus Mazzocchi, who is Polaron's business unit manager over at Polaron Language Services and has also worked as an Italian translator. Good to see you.
Thank you.
No worries at all. Tristan, I will start with you. Translators have been using technology in their work for decades now. But what does that actually mean? Because I've seen some pretty impressive stuff come out of Google recently. Can you take us through what you've seen?
I think Google is probably the first thing that comes to mind when people think of machine translation. It's probably one of the most accessible to everyone. But as translators, we'll tend to use computer-assisted technology, or CAT tools, which basically does the dirty work for us. It'll split up the translation, it recognizes certain phrases, and it has a memory. It has a translation memory, which really saves time in this sort of fast-paced world of translation that we're in now.
So just continuing on from that, you guys obviously, we've seen Google as mentioned, but Amazon and Microsoft have translator applications as well. Have the machines conquered this industry already? Is this the sort of thing we're seeing more and more integrated into people's daily lives? Why would somebody maybe get in touch with you guys over that?
So I don't think it's really a matter of machines conquering the industry.
Okay.
It's about us learning to work alongside them, because they can really do some great things. Amazon's service is more for like quick translations of websites, I suppose, and Microsoft Translate is great for, say, a tourist who can't communicate with someone else. But what they're really missing is the nuance that we can pick up as humans and the cultural value we bring to translation. And that's why people would look to someone like us, to a company like us.
And I think Eva's pointed that out on the show in the past about those cultural things that people may miss in terms of even body language or the way things are written and worded as well. So I can appreciate that.
Correct.
But I'll go over to Marcus now, and I'm glad to know that we're still safe for now. Can you tell us about some of the newest developments in the translation industry when it comes to technology?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mike. So let me just start by going back to the use of technology in the translation industry. So the use of technology has become more and more important. It has made the process of translation, quicker, more efficient, and of higher quality. As Tristan mentioned before, we have a range of tools that we can work with that, help translators, make these translations easier to do and of higher quality. And just to put that into context, one of the biggest changes we had in the industry in terms of technology has been the widespread use of machine translation over the past few years. And language service providers, they have taken advantage of that, obviously, and they have started offering machine translation and post-translation editing as part of their services. The use of machine translation has also kind of been accelerated in a way over the past few years as we had iterations of better machine translation algorithms. And I can give you an example. Google recently, in 2018, they switched from a statistical machine translation to neural machine translation. And the accuracy of that was anywhere between 0 and 60% accurate before, and is between 60 and 90% accurate now, depending on the language type and depending on the type of text. Now, obviously, language service providers like us and everyone else, they have taken advantage of that. But one thing that I need to point out, and it's important to point out, is that machine translation serves as it's something that we can use, but it doesn't account for things like slangs and jokes and cultural differences and rare words and sentences. So in my opinion, they are unlikely to replace translators in the near future. They might change slightly how translators work, but I think that we'll still have, a lot of demand for things like localization and, making translation culturally appropriate and things like that.
Well, just on that, Marcus, how does a translation company such as Polaron, for instance, stay relevant in this complex, ever-changing world? As you've mentioned, the technology is getting pretty good and pretty quick.
Yes. So 2 things, 2 points that I need to make about that. We make use of technology, obviously, to benefit our clients and provide consistent, reliable, and high quality translations. That's one point. But the second point, and I think the most important point, is that we don't consider ourselves as just a translation company. We basically look at ourselves as advisor to our clients. So we're always looking for ways to provide added value services. For example, we have our community approved translations where we work with ethno-specific communities, to make these translations appropriate, culturally and linguistically appropriate for the target language. We have our co-design services that we use to help our clients create these resources from the beginning. We have Easy English and Plain English, where we make these resources more accessible to CALD communities. So we make use of technology, but we are also looking for ways that we can help our clients based on their needs.
Marcus, an incredible wrap up from you. Thank you so much for joining us out there in the wide world.
Thank you, Mike.
An interesting point that I just came up with then, when we work with CALD communities, they don't always have access to technology. Is that something that you guys might have seen in your work and times?
Absolutely. I think we just assume that everyone's got a phone, everyone's got internet, and everyone's able to use them, right? But the truth is that you do need to use variety of methods. And I think, look, what's in my phone today, when I set up Polaron, that was my entire office. So you can see that over a period of 20 years, how things have changed, essentially. The thing with machine translation or any technology, yes, we know we can, but should we is the question. So we know that we can write stuff in English, we can write blog posts, we can do all kinds of things, but are people going to read it? Is it honest to do that? So I think what we do, and both Tristan and Marcus have brought forward, some of the ideas that we work at Polaron. We try and use technology where appropriate, and to help us be more consistent, as they've both mentioned, and innovative, creative. At the end of the day, it's what you make of it, but also we're here to stay, let me reassure you on 100%.
That front. It sounds like the work that Tristan does is, keeping the jokes a part of, the communication and the translation as well. But thank you as well for joining me and Eva in the studio today.
It's been my pleasure.
And a big thanks to all of you for tuning into today's episode of Ticker Talks. And of course, if you need any advice about how to reach your multicultural communities, please get in touch with the team at Polaron Language Services. The details are on the screen. I'm Mike Loader. Thank you so much for joining us today. And of course, head over to tickeroriginals.co for more discussions like this. We're covering something new every day. See you again soon. Be well.